won't lie, I got a little bit emotional during that episode. But what about you, dear listener? Let me know what you thought about this week's episode of My Hero Academia down in the comment section down below. And whilst you're there, be sure to give a like, thumbs up, subscribe, click the bell and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators. So support your local small content creator today. It will do them a power of good. Now on to the review. Okay, so I haven't got any notes in front of me, so I'm going into this thing kind of blind at the moment. This is all going to be off the cuff because I'm really pressed for time right now and I just need to get this recorded pronto. So with that in mind, I just want to say that I really did enjoy this episode. I loved it. I thought that it was the perfect balance of emotion and action that I really wasn't expecting from this week's episode. I'm gonna admit to you that I didn't see the preview from last week for this week, so I didn't really know what we were going to get into. And getting into this week's episode, I thought that it would end up just being more emotional, character building, drama stuff, taking on from last week's episode. I didn't expect it to be so action-packed as this. I fully expected that this week's episode would be just dealing with a little bit of the fallout from last week, maybe a bit of a tease for the big bads, the whole Meta Liberation Army and stuff, and maybe setting up for a big fight next week. Though with that said, what we ended up getting this week, like I say, is really fantastic. It was a pitch-perfect little emotional episode that really helped to round off some of the stuff that we've been dealing with Endeavour recently. This isn't going to be the end of his stuff or his whole attempts to try and redeem himself in the eyes of his family and to become the kind of hero that he always wanted to be. But it does feel as though we're kind of shutting the door on that ever so slightly as we start to move forward. I don't know if this is going to be the last episode of this season that is going to be focused around him and Shoto. By the looks of next week's preview, it's not going to end up having anything to do with that, so this might be it for a little while. So anyone who's been enjoying this stuff, you're going to have to wait a little bit more until it ends up coming back, but I'm sure it will come back soon. The episode itself, like I say, was able to strike this near perfect balance of being emotionally sensitive but all at the same time action-packed and thrilling. To cover the action-packed and thrilling stuff, it was really fantastic to see. Besides the fact it was a total surprise that we were going to get action in this episode, it was just done almost perfectly. It had the kind of flow of animation quality that I think this show should really be praised for. There are moments within this program where you get action sequences which feel very cinematic in their nature and how they're animated, whilst I don't feel they were quite on par with some of the stuff that we saw during the whole tournament arc kind of stuff that we saw earlier this season. It was still fantastically well put together and was one of those fights where you as an audience member are thinking to yourself, right, so how are they going to do this one? How are they going to get into such a position where they can save Shoto's brother but at the same time defeat the villain? There's also that angle, of course, that the villain, whatever his name was, a line man or whatever, wanted to have Endeavour kill him. So there's that angle of you just sitting there thinking to yourself, alright, is he going to do it? Is he going to find this guy by the side of the railway tracks and finish him off like he's some kind of mafia don or something like that? And you're just wondering if that going to be the ultimate emotional crux of this episode. Of course, that wasn't the case. It was more about Endeavour's family and the trauma of them losing a child and how that trauma still exists within the family up until this day. And I feel that them tackling that in what is, I say again, a animated a Saturday morning anime show, at least for me, from my perspective, again, is astounding. I know that in Japan this is going to be like, well, later in the day, this is going to be closer to the evening, but you get the idea. It's not the kind of thing you'd expect from this kind of program. When I think about this kind of program, I'm thinking people standing in a forest or a field shouting very loudly and thumping each other very, very hard. I don't expect to have this kind of emotional depth and nuance to it. And I have to say that one of my favourite moments in this episode, and it's going to sound bizarre, is that moment of silence when Endeavour and Shoto's brother are talking. That moment where everything just cuts out and we just hear the ambience and just cut to people watching it. I think that in almost any other circumstance would have just had a little bit of talk, a little bit of nattering in the background from other characters, a comment from them, or an internal monologue bit. Very, very few writers, whether that is in animation, whether it's in anime or Western stuff, whether that is in cinema, very few truly appreciate a moment of silence and just how powerful that can be. And the moment that happened, I was just there like, that's it, that's the perfect creative choice for this. No internal monologues, No comment from anyone watching it, nothing like that, just the ambience and just the stillness of that moment, and I think that really helped to sell that moment. It was what felt like the emotional climax of this story arc, this part of Endeavour's story. It isn't going to be the climax of it, but at least for this moment, at least for this time within this season, this feels like the moment at least where I'm just going to draw a line under it and start to move on to other stuff now. Again, I don't know that to be the case or not, because I have not read the manga, so I don't know where all of this is ultimately going, but let's be honest now, we're starting to get into the business end of this season. We're starting to get into like the final third of it, so I can't imagine us continuing on to do stuff with Endeavour and Shoujo quite to this extent. They're still going to be there, and they're still going to have the stuff with Endeavour doing his agency stuff with Midoriya, Shoto and Bakugo, and that's still going to be there, but I don't think the family dynamic stuff is going to be quite as front and centre as it has been over the past few episodes. Whether you like that fact or not is depending on your own mileage of it, but with that in mind, what did you think about this week's episode of My Hero Academia? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to you shortly, either in the comments themselves or towards the end of next week's video. Next week's video might be delayed because I have to go and get my glasses. Last week I had my eyes tested. Next week is when I actually have to get them, and I have to go into town to get them. So we might see a bit of a format change happening over the next few weeks or so. We might start to get more video reviews in, or the audio ones might change. It really depends. Like, I want to know what you guys think. What kind of things we could do to improve the format of this. Just let me know in the comments. But with all that said and done, thank you for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!